Let's talk about the circumstances leading up to Black Friday,
Black Saturday.
Black Saturday. We talk about that actually on Dark Side of the Ring this season. There's an episode about that. But let's talk about that whole circumstance, because it's still one of the crazier stories in wrestling history about how that all went down.
Yeah, it's really crazy. So, I mean, I guess the start of the story is that Ole's the booker for Jim Barnett. And Atlanta was a profitable company until it wasn't. And so what happened was that what Barnett as booker wanted Ole to have a financial stake. So basically Barnett maneuvered and said, ask Bill Watts to own 10%, sell your 10% to Ole, because Ole's going to be here and whatever. So they made a deal, and Ole got 10% of the company. So now Ole has access to the books because he's an owner. And for Ole, it's like he's getting paid as booker, he's getting paid as main event talent, and then he's got an ownership cut. Okay. So he's really studying this as a businessman, and he sees that the company's losing lots of money. They were at $1,300,000 in the hole, which I know doesn't sound great now, but if you talk about 1980, that was a lot of money in 1980, right? Or 81, 82. And there were reasons, and Atlanta was losing money. They were booking the Omni every week. Because the idea was a weekly city, and the break even was, you had to drop 5,000 a week to break even, and that was tough to do it week in and week out in that big building. So, and Barnett was a big spender too, so that was a lot of it too. So Ole investigates, he's looking through the books, and he sees that Barnett is a big spender, which, again, when the company's super profitable, nobody cares. We're all making money, right? When the company's losing money, and he sees $3,000 a month phone bills and private chef and private, driver and penthouse apartment, all charged to the company. It's just like Ole's just fuming and threatens to turn Barnett into the police for embezzlement. There's a big showdown, and they want him out, and they got Ole and some of the other promoters. When Ole's explaining it to the local promoters, they just wanted Barnett out, and Barnett's trying to Barnett is both there for the thing, but he wanted to protect his reputation because he was a big arts guy, you know what I mean? So the idea is like, he's the president of this company that we all know that's on television, right? And so can I keep my title? I'll even not take a salary. Can I keep my title? And it's just like, no, you're gone. And so he, and allegedly at one point, Ole also threatens to beat him up if Barnett doesn't sign the thing. So Barnett agrees to it. Then he goes to his lawyer, and it's like, I signed it under duress. I don't want this. So anyway, it ends up Barnett's gone. Then next thing he does is he goes to work for Vince McMahon. Ole's running the company. And so Ole did what he did was he stopped using big names, and he ran more small shows, and he got the company to where it had a $20,000 profit one year, but it was going nowhere. Like attendance dropped 60%, but he made it profitable by cutting out, not booking big names. And so the Briscoes own 19.5% of the company. And they're looking at it as this company, there's no future. It's like you keep cutting back while Vince is on national TV with Hulk Hogan, right? And it's like you can only cut so much, but there's no future, there's no growth in this thing. The attendance is going down, and they're just looking for a way to, make some money on their stock, which they thought was going to be their retirement, right? We're just going to own 10% of this thriving company when we're 40 years old and it comes time to retire, and it's, get our dividends and it's all wonderful. And they realize that that's not happening. So Jack calls up Vince and Vince McMahon and just basically sets the idea of like, would you buy? And Vince is just like, I'm not buying unless you can get 51%.
51%, right.
51%. I'll buy 51%. Other than that, no, I have no interest in buying this thing. So they rounded up. Barnett had sold to his college friend, Jim Oates. And then they also got Paul Jones, which is not the wrestler Paul Jones, but a old promoter. So between everyone, they had 67.5% of the stock. The key thing that was so crazy about this story is Ole is the general manager. He's running the company. And you also have, Fred Ward and Ralph Freed, who ran Columbus and were also minority stockholders.
Mm-hmm.
But between the three of them, they own 32.5% of the company. So they have no idea any of this is going on. They're having, Vince and the Briscoes got the signed proxy of Paul Jones. They got the agreement from Jim Oates, and they kept it secret. And Vince even said, like, if Ole finds out, this deal's done. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they had to all keep everything from Ole. So one day Ole wakes up and he finds out that the company sold to Vince McMahon. So Ole goes to court thinking, like, how can you sell this company, when I never approved of it, and the Freed and Fred Ward didn't approve of it, and we own 32%. It's like it should be like all the owners should have to agree. So they had about a 3-month court fight, I think it was roughly, before eventually the court ruled in favor of Vince. And then that Saturday, you turn on World Championship Wrestling on Channel 17, expecting to see, Tommy Rich and Wrestling 2 and all your favorites. And there's Freddie Miller in an empty building with Vince McMahon and Gorilla Monsoon. And they're pitching to tapes from Boston and Philadelphia and just the same stuff that you would see on USA Network, And so that's what, that was how the sale ended up going down. And then even then, Ted Turner got so many complaints that he went and gave Ole a 7:30 a.m. time slot, which is not on a Saturday, which is not the best time slot in the world. But Ole for a year still ran he started a new company, Championship Wrestling from Georgia. And, they tried and everything. I mean, the one thing, Ole's biggest accomplishment, I would say, in that latter era when business was going down was the introduction of the Road Warriors. He went to Minnesota and
right. Well, before we get to Road Warriors, let me just put a couple buttons on this other thing. Okay. Because what you wrote was when they got the 67%, that they were then wrote some kind of a codicil that said that the majority shareholders could then sell their stock without telling the minority shareholders, and that became law, right?
So see what happened. So this is with the meeting with Vince. So yeah, because originally there was something now Ole does have a different story. But this is the story that I'm going to tell is the one that came out in the court case. So I'm pretty sure it's the real story. Ole's version was that he had gone through the bylaws. He had seen that there was a hole, but the lawyers for Georgia Wrestling, and he complained about it and this may just be Ole trying to show, hey, I was all knowing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I knew, but the lawyers told me, oh, this is never going to happen. There's nothing you need to worry about. Now, the way the court case went down was that they had the 67.5% of the voting share, but the papers, for the company was that all owners needed to agree to a sale.
Right.
So what they did was they made an amendment, but to make amendments in that contract, you only needed 51%. So they first made an amendment which allowed for the sale, and then 15 minutes later, Vince bought it.